Hey everybody, welcome back. You have made it to the series finale about elections and news media, so let's jump right in. Alright, so not only are elections one of the most important topics on the AP Gov exam, but since people in real life like to talk about elections, watch this video and you just might sound like the smartest person in the room. Now, your personal results may vary. But either way, let's go ahead and start because we have a lot to get to. Let's start with the two main types of elections: general and primary. A general election is where the winner takes office. So in 2020, we're thinking of Biden versus Trump, where the winner gets to be president. But before we get to the general election, each party goes through the primary process first. The primary system allows people to have some influence nominating the candidate from their party for the general election. I need to make sure that I tell you that we have primaries for all sorts of elections, including presidential and congressional, but we're going to focus the majority of our attention on presidential primaries. Primaries are kind of weird. There's no single national primary day, but rather primary elections happen state by state around the country over a period of about 5 to 6 months. And even the rules governing the primaries and even the type of elections differ from one state to another. So let's really get into the weeds here. First of all, most states have primary elections. These are just basic normal elections. Somebody goes to a polling place, gets a ballot, fills it out, and leaves. They're able to vote for their preferred candidate to represent their party. So in 2020, there were a bunch of Democrats running. Some of you might remember, and voters would go and choose which Democrat they wanted to run against Trump in the general election in November. Okay, simple enough. Other states instead hold a caucus. So a caucus is a meeting of party members where individuals get together and talk and debate and discuss and then vote for their preferred candidate in front of other people. It's a totally different animal than a primary election. The first event of the primary season is the Iowa caucus, and it's sometimes described as democracy in action. Back to primaries, there's two types. Well, actually, there's more than two, but there's two on the course curriculum: open and closed primaries. States with open primaries allow any registered voter to participate in either party's primary. You walk up, and they ask you which primary you want to participate in, and you tell them and vote in that primary. You cannot vote in both, but you do get to choose either one. Closed primaries, on the other hand, only allow people who are registered to that party to participate. So not only does a person have to be a registered voter, but they also have to be registered to that party in order to vote. So how does someone win their party's nomination for president? Well, they have to win a majority of delegates. Okay, so next question, what's a delegate? But delegates are people who represent voters and officially elect the party's candidate at the national convention. Basically, and this is a simplification, when a candidate wins a state, their reward is a certain number of delegates who will be assigned to go to the national convention and cast a vote for that person. At the convention, the party formally nominates their candidate. There's lots of balloons, and they adopt their platform for the next 4 years. And it's congrats for winning this election, now you get to run in the general election. And as I'm sure you're already aware of, since you are probably a sentient human being, is that the United States has an electoral college system to elect the president. The way a candidate wins the presidency is to win a majority of electoral votes, which happens to be 270. There's 538 total electoral votes. Why 538? Each state's electoral votes is equal to their number of representatives plus senators, and then Washington, D.C. gets 3 electoral votes, so that's 538. Most states, and by most I mean 48, award all of their electoral votes to the candidate who receives the most votes in their state. So, for example, Trump's reward for winning Florida was all 29 electoral votes. Biden's reward for winning Pennsylvania was all of their electoral votes. The margin of victory doesn't matter. Back in 2000, when Bush won Florida by 537 votes, he won all 25 electoral votes they had at the time. Because of these facts, candidates focused the vast majority of their time, money, and campaign resources focusing on just a handful of states, known as swing or battleground states. These are the states that are competitive, that each candidate actually has a chance to win, so they focus on them to the exclusion of everywhere else. Some may ask, why do we have such a weird system to elect the president? Well, it all goes back to the Constitutional Convention, and it was in part a result of compromise, but it also showed the framers' distrust in democracy. It's intentionally undemocratic. They did not trust the people with this decision, And so this really embodies that filtered representation of elite democracy. People can vote, obviously, but what they're really voting for is another person to cast the official vote for president. Today, that elite part doesn't really matter because the Electoral College just votes for whoever won their seat anyway. But the question remains, does the Electoral College promote or inhibit democracy? Arguments made in favor of the Electoral College include that states retain an important role in this decision. It ensures geographic balance because otherwise candidates would just focus on densely populated urban areas, and it guards against mob rule by uninformed voters. Those who oppose the Electoral College would likely counter that it gives too much power to voters in swing states, that it's anti-democratic, lowercase d, the idea not the party, because it ignores the popular vote, and that the winner-take-all feature discourages third-party candidates from running. I'm not sure who's right, but I am sure that this is a topic you want to be prepared to write for because it makes a great FRQ prompt. And before we move on to campaign finance, let's take a moment and talk about some of the similarities and differences between presidential and congressional elections. One of the similarities is that there's an incumbency advantage for both congressional and presidential incumbents. For presidential elections, the president already has campaign experience, has established his or her network of campaign donors, and is already seen as presidential. Each of these give the incumbent an advantage. Members of Congress have an even stronger incumbency advantage. By the way, that means that the person currently holding office usually wins re-election. The reasons for their advantage are different though. They can provide casework or constituent service, they receive the vast majority of PAC contributions, they have better name recognition and more media visibility than their challenger. Like presidential elections, congressional elections also have open and closed primaries and caucuses that work the same way. And there are congressional elections every 2 years, and ones that take place between presidential elections are known as midterm elections. Turnout is lower, and the voters in these elections tend to be more partisan and ideological than the voters in presidential election years. Modern campaigns are characterized by several changes in recent decades: dependence on professional consultants, rising campaign costs, and intensive fundraising efforts. Long election cycles, upward of 2 years long, are common at this point, and campaigns have become more and more reliant on social media. Okay, last up is campaign finance. For the AP exam, this section is all about free speech versus money in politics, and we'll get to that. For now, some background vocabulary. Campaign contributions can be referred to as either hard money or soft money. Hard money refers to contributions made directly to a candidate. This is strictly regulated regarding who can give and how much they can give. Soft money, on the other hand, is money contributed to political parties for party building purposes, and this money is both unlimited and unrestricted. Or at least it was until 2002 when the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act was passed. This was a major piece of legislation that, among other things, banned soft money, instituted a stand by your ad provision. So this is why you hear campaign commercials end with, "I'm the money and I approve this message." And also placed limits on the timing of independent political ads, disallowing some of them in the 30 to 60 days leading up to an election. But then if we fast forward to 2010 and our required case, Citizens United versus FEC, we'll find that some of these features aren't going to make it. According to the majority opinion, political spending by corporations, associations, and labor unions is a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. So the court strikes down several of the provisions of BICRA, including the soft money ban and the ban on the timing of independent political ads. To the majority, this is very simply and clearly a free speech case, and the government is attempting to censor speech. To the dissenting justices, this isn't about speech, and rather about protecting the integrity of elections by limiting corporate influence on election outcomes. The court's ruling in Citizens United led to the creation of super PACs, but let's back up for a moment and address plain old regular PACs. A political action committee raises money to support a candidate or cause. The newly created super PAC's real name is Independent Expenditure Only Committee, and they can raise and spend an unlimited amount of money independent of the candidate, as their name suggests, and this is the only thing they can do. Both PACs and super PACs can raise and spend this independent money. However, corporations and unions may not contribute to a regular PAC, and regular PACs may contribute a small amount of money directly to a candidate. This is different than super PACs, because corporations and unions may contribute, but they cannot contribute any money directly to a candidate. All right, we're almost done. Our last section is about the news media. Hang in there with me. In the least surprising bit of AP Gov notes ever, the way people get their news has changed over time, from newspapers to radio to TV to internet and now to social media. Without a doubt, we have seen a dramatic increase in media choices. More news sources than ever, but we're not necessarily better informed. Part of the problem is uncertainty over the credibility of news sources. I don't think I need to tell you that there has been a lot of discussion about fake news in the last few years, as well as debates over media bias. Additionally, consumer driven media outlets' main goal is to make money, and so they basically give their audience a version of the news that they want, which has the effect of reinforcing their existing beliefs. This is also a major result of social media. Ideologically oriented programming is basically news that's targeted to specific people, be they conservative, liberal, alt-right, progressive, what have you, and this has the same effect of reinforcing existing beliefs. And lastly, let's discuss 3 roles of the news media. The gatekeeper role of the media is when they decide what to report on and for how long to report on it. This is a monumentally important role. If they ignore things, the public may not know about it, while if they report on something incessantly, it will likely become more important in the public consciousness. Unfortunately, many news organizations tend to embrace horse race journalism, choosing to report on polls and popularity of candidates, framing everything in politics as competition with winners and losers, as opposed to focusing on more substantive reporting, such as the qualifications and platforms of candidates. The media also fulfills the watchdog role, protecting the public from government overreach, corruption, or incompetence when it engages in investigative journalism. And that's it, not only for this episode, but for the entire series. Make sure to pause the video so you can answer the multiple choice questions. This is another great opportunity to test yourself and see how well you know the ins and outs of the United States election system. Put your answers in the comments below and check your answers in the answer key in the description. Thanks so much for watching this series and sticking with me all the way to the end. I really hope that it helped. Until next time, because you know there's always other videos, this has been a Money production. Alright, thanks again for watching this video, for watching this whole series. If you want to show me some love, do me a favor, hit that like button. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to check out the AP Gov Ultimate Review Packet. I really can't believe you haven't clicked that link yet, but go ahead and do it now. You finished the series, so go ahead and click that link in the description below, so make sure to check it out. Thanks again. I'll see everybody in some other videos.